Ladies and gentlemen and ladies, starting with a low, we have a 5.7.
Boo!
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 Oh, but wait, then we got a 10. And what else we got?
Another 10!
Oh,
Another 10!
yeah.
10s in a row, making it a perfect score for the first round of this podcast. Hi, my name is Leonite Jr.
I'm Melissa Rose. Together, collectively, we are Caligula 6.
Caligula 6.
And
Yep,
this is War of the Proses, the podcast which talks about slam poetry and all the backstage things that are truly stranger than fiction.
the tea and the drama and like what happened, really happened.
Yeah, what really happened, the things that you didn't see on stage, and the things that we experienced as being part of the slam community for over 20 years and involved on a national level. So we were going to talk a little bit about the history of slam and, kind of how it got started prior to us getting involved. So Lee, did you want to talk a little bit about that?
Oh, maybe you should start, maybe. Yeah, ladies first. Ladies first. Ladies first. Ooh.
So, my understanding.
Oh, wait, no. We have to start, of course, the Mike Henry and explain
yes.
those numbers. Yes.
Hold on. I'm getting ahead of myself. The first thing that we need to do is we need to tell the people out there, what is a poetry slam anyway? We hear this word, but
I've always heard about it, but what is it?
What is a poetry slam? So I'm going to let Mike Henry tell us just briefly. So here we go.
Poetry slam, here's how it works. Poets, you have 3 minutes to perform one original poem of your own construction. No props are allowed, no costumes are allowed, no animal acts are allowed. No musical accompaniment other than the music you can create with your own body will be allowed. Each poem will be scored on a scale of 0.0 to 10.0 by our panel of 5 judges who have been selected from the audience. Judges, please consider the content and the performance of the poems. The only really important thing is that you tell us what you think. Poetry slam is about the idea that everybody has a valid opinion about art, and you don't need some degree or credential to prove it. Be honest and don't be influenced by the audience or the other judges. Audience, your job here is to try to influence the judges. If you think the poem or the score is great, let us know. If you think the poem or the score sucks, let us know.
Ooh.
All right. Enough of my yakking. Let's boogie.
All right. So
And that was Mike Henry.
That was Mike Henry talking about the rules of slam. So there are rules to this game, and I do call it a game because it is
one.
It is one, right? One thing that I think is really interesting about slam is that it's kind of combining the competition with the art, which I think is something that makes slam really unique, is that the art that comes out of the game, is what makes the game of it so intriguing and enticing, so it's kind of what comes out of that. So
I think the competitive portion of slam kind of what makes the razor sharp. You know what I mean? It's like what makes you write stronger and kind of like write more succinct, I think, because people will judge you on it. People like let you know,
no, I was going to say that the time constraint for the poem is another thing that I think is part of the challenge as well, where it's, you only have 3 minutes to get a certain score if you want to advance, right? So but in that 3 minutes, you need to give everything that you have. And I've seen poems that made 3 minutes feel like an hour, poems that are so well written that you kind of have like an out of body experience almost,
Exactly.
and
You
it's
know?
done in 3 minutes, and like that's the stuff about slam poetry that I love, where it's like, wow, like it's like you could watch like a 2 hour movie, right? That moves you emotionally, right? It takes you on these highs and lows, but a 3 minute condensed kind of form that does the exact same thing in that short amount of time is just, like, to me, phenomenal, and it happens again and again and again, like with some of the most powerful slam poets that have been out there. So that's something that I like about the game, right? Is that you only
Yeah,
need three
exactly.
minutes. You only need 3 minutes, you know, because all these people can do it. So can you. So
Yeah, exactly. Like when somebody I'm on a board at a senior center, and when somebody we have where people the public can make an opinion about what's happening at the senior center during our board meetings during this duration, and when we had to pick how long people could talk, I was like 3 to 4 minutes because I've heard people describe lifetimes in 3 minutes. You know what I mean? So it gave me like definitely my patience. I can listen to somebody, really, you know, intently until you're at 3 minutes 10 seconds. Then I'm like, all right,
yeah,
you could have we've told complete stories with different versions in 3 minutes.
yeah.
So it's not impossible. It's just difficult once you learn how. And then when you learn
Mm.
how, it's kind of like it's the fun part, you
And
know?
to me, there's also like this urgency that comes with it, that you really want to make every word count, or when you're pausing, like that's cutting into your time, so you want to put that pause in a place where it feels necessary, right? Because it's like sometimes you say a line and you'll want to hold that space, right? So anyway, I'm kind of going off on a tangent a little bit, but we were talking about the rules of slam and why they're there and the game of it.
And but there's this thing that they have called teams. How does that work? Are they like gangs? How do these teams work?
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's
Perhaps
talk
you can
a
explain.
little bit about that. Sure. So, um, you know, uh, you have like a local slam poetry show where the show is happening every week or every couple weeks, and during that time, you usually have top three poets of the night, right? um and in some cases, right, the people who are in the top three, or people who kind of are, win a certain amount of times, it really depends on the venue, but you can try for a slam poetry team if you have been one of the top scored poets throughout the season, and the season is usually from like to October, to like the spring, like April, May. Although we always had our finals early because we liked to
Yeah, yeah,
stuff, but typically Mayish
yeah.
was the the finals season.
Yeah.
So
When you start seeing other flyers and people are getting nervous and
yeah, um, and then you have, some venues just have a finals at the end of the season, but some have a semifinals, where you have like two semifinals, and then those top people go into the finals. So by the time that you get to finals, where who's going to be on like the national level team, you have really kind of got the cream of the crop, so to speak, as far as who's been coming there and winning consistently. And then if you get the top five scores of that night, then you would be on a national team, and a national team would represent your venue at a national
your
competition,
city.
or a regional competition. Yeah, so teams.
And don't forget the city. It's so in the first nationals, they had the top three teams, there's a first place, second place, and a third place, but there was only three teams. But
Mhm.
I digress. The first nationals had three teams, the second had four, and the last one had 84 teams. So
Yeah.
it's grown exponentially
Yeah.
since its origins way back in the first nationals was in 1990.
I think it was not, was it
I don't
1990?
remember.
I think it was 1990.
I think it's in notes somewhere, but it's here it is. It was in 1990. Very
Mhm.
good.
Yeah.
Nice. 1990, and then which of course we have to put this in 1990. The first nationals was at Chicago. The winner, what was that? Yeah, was it? Yeah, it was Chicago. So I'm looking at this wrong. Um, First place was. Does that say Chicago too? Or did I cut that off? Anyway,
Mhm.
second place was San Francisco, and third place was New York, the New
Mhm.
Eurekan
The New Year weekend.
Poets Cafe, a famous poetry spot in New York City. That Ojo has gone to.
I have. I mean, I think it's interesting. So it's like Chicago, San Francisco, and New York, New Eurekan, right? I think it's
Yeah,
interesting because those three kind of areas, I guess, have always been, well known, like in the slam community. They're definitely like hubs, and Lee, you and I are from the San Francisco Bay Area. And as we get into the Bay Slam scene, there were so many teams in that area. And
yes,
likewise,
so many.
with New York and things. And so it doesn't, I mean, it's really interesting to me that like in that first nationals, it was those three cities that were represented because they continued to be consistently like having this reputation that kind of came along with them as being really good slam, I guess. What's the word? Like hubs, I guess. Um,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, but like you said, going from three teams, and that was 1990, to 84 teams is a
You
huge,
know?
a huge leap, which I think also it just says a lot to about the power of slam poetry and why people gravitate towards it and why people find the I guess the medium, to be so intriguing and so interesting, as something that they want to be a part of. Um,
Exactly.
yeah.
It's for some people it's that feeling of always feeling like the outside geek, the nerd, the goth. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
um, already feeling like an outsider, and then you get into poetry, and at first you feel like, oh, like-minded outsiders just like me, right? But then you discover it's kind of more than that. It's more than like this cool kids club. It's more it.
Mhm.
You realize the power of poetry, how it could heal, how it could really you're in a room where everybody's empathic because they're listening to your words. And there's
Mhm.
something about that you didn't get to, most people haven't had a chance to have that experience, and
Mhm.
it does something to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. I know personally, right? It's like I feel like having that space that's kind of carved out specifically for you, to do whatever you want to do within the barriers of the rules, right? For 3 minutes, is,
Exactly.
I mean, if it feels good, and it also feels really good when the audience feels whatever you are expressing. Like that to me is
Exactly.
like the collective healing that can happen between the audience and the performer is really powerful, um for both. I think it's a symbiotic, relationship, and that slam creates, right? It's like, it's like, I know I personally as a performer, knowing that other people understood or felt or could identify with what I was expressing was really powerful for me. And it really helped me not feel so alone in the world, like,
Yeah,
it helped me
exactly.
understand that like being a human being, you know, is this rich experience. Like, you can see someone on stage perform about something that you personally haven't experienced.
Exactly. Like like that,
Mhm.
like well, people who've never been to the Sudan, hearing a poem about the Sudan
Yeah.
and feeling like, wow, I was there. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like, and there's something also that feeling when somebody said, wow, I didn't know somebody felt the same way about this.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's like you really have that feeling of like I'm not alone, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
what I've written has helped somebody.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah. Not only
that's
are you
the
not alone, but somebody else in that audience isn't alone either, you know.
exactly you help them. So it's kind of something groovy about that. At least I
Mhm.
think so.
I mean, to me,
But
that's really what it's
so
about, so.
exactly, it's they say it's not the poet, it's about the poetry, the point, which is kind of true because there have been times where somebody didn't win, but you're like, okay, that was the best poem though.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, so
So
there's
sometimes
a
there's
core
like a
beauty in it.
consensus about who really won, right? As
Who really
opposed to
won?
like
Yeah,
who
exactly.
won like score wise.
Yeah,
And that's
exactly.
and that's like a
Like
whole other thing that I know as our podcast goes on, we could go more into. Um, but
yeah,
yeah.
when you're like, dude, there are times when I was a beginner and I won and was like, now looking back, I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have won that. Jesus, were they listening? You know. But you also know that the average audience member, in my opinion, there's ones who are at the slam because they're really there for the, and there are others that are like, I call it like there are people who listen to the radio and go to a specific station and go, hey, I want to listen to NPR or I want to listen to old R&B, or like
Yeah.
classic rock. And then there are other people who are like, I just want to listen to the station that plays all the pop hits that are popular right now.
Yeah.
And I'll play old music for the hour at noon, right?
Uh-huh.
So and there's nothing wrong with those people, but the audience is kind of like that, where there are audience
Mhm.
people who are like, wow, that was topical and didn't
Yeah.
make me feel scared, right? Like, oh, I like that. Oh, didn't you like that too? Okay. And then there's other poets, other audience members who are like, no, I wasn't feeling that. No,
Mhm.
not at all. Nope. And I listened to everything you said, and you know,
Mhm.
anyway, there's something to that. And sometimes as poets, we know, like, I hate to say it because we're recording, but you can look at the audience and go, like, okay, I can tell they're dumb shits. All right, so I'm not going to do anything that I have that's too heavy, right? Or, hey, this poem about farting is going to win,
Mhm.
no matter what I put up, because, what are they in the mood for? They're in the mood to laugh. And it's
Yeah.
but at the same time, uh, Rick Rubin had said, when you are creating your art, you don't make it for the audience, you make it for yourself.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So like, so if you don't get the score, but it's easier for us to say though, because I was going to say if you don't get the score, it doesn't matter. But we've got the score, so now we can go like, well, if you don't get it, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? And it's just kind of like I was looking like so. I didn't know we took the fifth. Five? But actually I said we took the fifth, but I thought I was exaggerating because um I felt bad because we were really close, right? But no, we really took the fifth. I mean, that was like one away from fourth final stage. You know what I mean? Like, and we slaughtered these motherfuckers. So, um, I didn't like. I hated that venue anyway. Sorry. So we have the experience of, you know, I just didn't. It was just a shitty venue. Oh God.
Oh, we
By the
should do
way,
we should do
listeners,
a
the
whole
venue.
episode on venues, but
Yeah, because some venues are great, and you're like, I really liked, for example, the one that was in the Dallas Invitational, the one with the stage,
yeah.
and like, yeah, I like, and Germany, I wouldn't even go. Germany had the best ones, but
Mm.
and now sometimes we had some fucked up places where you're like, really here? But other times, like remember at St. Paul, it was the stage was in the middle of the room,
Mm.
and the seats went around.
Mm-hmm.
So like so me and Jalal had a team piece. So we went on. So there was a so because it was round, there were rows going, all the way around, kind of like a spider's web, right? So we ran to the stage from opposite ends of the auditorium.
Mm-hmm.
So it was almost like wrestlers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they were like, oh, Berkeley was like, go, go, go. And we said we ran down like it was actually we won, and I got a good compliment, which was if anybody else would have done that poem, I would have thought um, it was well written pop shit. But you and Jalal made it seem really cool, and I was just like, thank you. Thank you. Anyway, so back to nationals. In teams, we went into that part, so we'll go
Yeah.
into open mics, which is the it is the backseat makeout session in the art world. You're not really losing your virginity, but you're getting close to it.
Oh,
It's true. So you're almost there. You're kind of like, oh, this is hot. And there are these open mics, and open mics are places where different places have different. Generally, it's like 5 to 10 minutes of your song or your poem or your attempt at stand-up comedy, and it's where people venture. It's funny, like, oh, some people just had a crappy day at work and they just want to write about that, or they hate what they hear about the news. So it's nice, and it's
yeah.
a place that's open for artists to kind of like sharp their nails
Mm-hmm.
and and learn to unhook their bras because it's coming.
The
Because it's
well,
gonna
I
be
mean,
bad.
and I was just going to clarify too that you and I kind of came from open mic, to start from. So, we
Yeah.
definitely had a lot of experience in open mic stuff prior to slam, and I think that a lot of people have that experience where they're going to open mics and then they hear about slam and then they go to slam and they either feel it or they don't feel it. And the people who feel it, you know, tend to stay and then kind of use open mics perhaps to try something out and test it with an audience, right? And kind of
Yeah,
see how it
exactly.
goes. Um, but yeah, open mics, since it's a variety of different things, it's not just poetry. So, and but I mean, it is good to have audiences, when you're considering a new work, just to kind of see, just to test the waters a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and just yeah, to learn if you can swim or not,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because it's, 'cause motherfuckers, it's sometimes you can't. Um, wait,
I
remember what
want,
was
I
it
want to,
in
what, which one?
Don't Be a Menace when he goes, you can't swim, you're down to drown.
Down to,
They're jumping into the gang, and they have the double dutch. You
yeah.
know, he wanted me, he wanted that. Oh, anyway, sorry, that was
Well,
in my
like
head. Um,
I think this could be a good segue to kind of talk a little bit about how you and I kind of became involved in slam kind of via our our like explorations kind of in poetry and the art worlds prior to that.
Actually, yeah, like you first.
Hmm. Okay. Well, so
Yeah.
14, 15-year-old me writing like, bad teenage poetry. And I, I have a lot of love, but I read it and I'm like, oh, poor Melissa. So many feelings. And I was invited to a slam by someone who ran the show or was hosting the show. And they were like, oh, you write poetry, you should come to the poetry slam. And I was like, okay, whatever. Like I really was just not really sure what it was. And then I went there and I performed one of my bad teenage poems. And don't think I scored really high. I don't think I made it into the second round, but the poets that were there, unbeknownst to me, were like some of the best poets in the Bay Area scene at the
You
time.
know?
So, and I had no idea, of course. I'm just like, I don't know, I don't care. So, but like looking back, I'm like, oh wow, like it was pretty much everybody who was like in the scene at the time who was like a big deal. I performed with that night, and I had no idea. Um, and then I met somebody there who was like, "Hey, I saw you did your poem. You should come to this open mic at this place called Cafecito." So I started to go to this open mic at this place called Cafecito, where I kind of honed my performance. And it's a little embarrassing to say, but during that time, mostly what I performed at Cafecito for like the first year was like erotica stuff, which I kind of did on purpose because I knew that I was underage and people knew that I was underage and I was trying to mess with people a little bit. But I eventually got out of it. Thank God. Um, but but it was like through Cafecito, I eventually found my way to the slam, as so many people do, because there's some overlap there. So slam people would come to Cafecito and then they'd say, "Hey, we're doing the slam." And the slam was just a couple blocks away. So I started going to the slam and then I just did slam after that. I know like Lee, you and I, we're still doing Cafecito for a while, before we really
Yeah,
got
yeah.
into the slam there. So that's how I got.
Because for the open mic slams, like it, like cafecito places like that, they got crowded. It got packed, and it
Yeah,
was right near the campus.
yeah. And you had to go early to
And so
sign
it was,
up. There was like 50
yes, oh
people
yeah,
on the sign up list every night. You had to get there at like 5:30 and sign up and just like wait.
wander around. Yep, exactly.
Had to sit and wait and eat
You know,
burritos and hang out.
yeah, and try to get a good chair,
Yeah,
like
you get a good chair and
for the
don't
burritos.
leave it because people would come in. And they had a jam band too that
Yeah, dude.
that would jam, so those were late
Yes.
nights. Getting home at like 1 in the morning. Those
Dude.
were late nights.
There were people sitting in the window sills. Like it was just really packed sometimes. It was kind of nice.
Yeah.
It was neat. And I'm glad that um whoever was in their early 20s around that time that was hanging out at Cafecito was probably like a really good time, because music, poetry, it was
Yeah.
um yeah, it's nice. Good time to see is the young
Yeah.
times.
And
But theater did help you in slam. You wouldn't consider yourself a theater slam poet, would you?
no, I would consider myself a writer first, although I do consider myself like a performance artist. I feel like I but I wouldn't consider myself an actor, you know. That's
Yeah.
and that is explicitly because when I perform, I'm typically performing as myself. So I'm like
Yeah.
I'm like, this is me, but
Oh.
like a performance version of who I am. And But yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that I think, a lot of theater kind of principles that can be used in like a slam performance that I've seen and I know we've explored collaboratively. So you can use a lot of theater in slam as well.
Ooh. Yeah, see, I like that.
Mhm. So let's hear
If
about
we,
you.
we, we should have
Let's hear about
we need a
you.
studio audience. Me, I'm
Yeah.
kind of lame, man. The open mic venue, first one I went to in Crenshaw in Inglewood, California. This is way back in God, like 80. No, no, no. Um, it's when I moved back from Japan. So it had to be around 1994. Um, I went to a Good Life Cafe, Good Life Food Center. So like a it was kind of famous in the hip hop community. It had week open mic this and it was started by a man named B Ball and her son Arcane Blaze, his friends, and the mighty O Rock, and the dynamic flow KNGR and the underground radio. I had to say other names because they're important people in the story of the origin of the good life. Now, um, the good life after workshop aspiring MCs and poets such as myself, and I'm going to come to workshops and musicians to hone their craft. So on Thursday nights from 10, artists were allowed to perform one song. Some would perform written songs and some would freestyle. When the performance was not up to par, the audience would call out, "Pass the mic, please pass the mic." Just gonna well, I mean, it's I've been places where they shake the keys. We're just gonna do that's fucked up. Um, so like they also wait said there's a policy of no cursing and explained that young people needed a place to go to develop their own art. The non-cussing policy wasn't about being uptight church people. It was about wanting the atmosphere of serious arts workshop. Most of the crowd respecting the rules. Some said it made rapping more challenging, that it created more respect and brotherhood. So after the venue closed at night, people would continue with bash ciphers in the parking lot, and then in like '95 around, when I would kind of poke my head there, the project kind of blowed up and became a successful venue. So people like Kravitz and Cube and Snoop, Will I Am, Macy Gray would go to open mic every now and then, and other artists like Farside and Bismarcky and Fat Joe and Skilo and Corrupt were occasionally there. And I remember seeing Corrupt twice. It was, but that really got me kind of because I loved hip hop and I wanted to be a part of it, but I was just a writer. So anyway, so after that, I moved to Boston and hung the cat in the Lizard Lounge, but I never slammed. But the Cat Tab had an open mic before the slam, and I would always read at the open mic. And wasn't brave enough to even try a slam or the whole point thing. Yeah, no. And it was funny too because I know I was scared, right? But instead, I think they use the common excuse, which you can't, you know, put a point, put points to art. You can't, judge art like that. And yeah, motherfucker, you can. You really should. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like, so anyway, um, so after that, like, it's funny too because the Cantab was close to my house. So it was fun. That was like our big thing. And but then I found the Lizard Lounge and I remember after one night they had a cipher on stage and
Mm,
oh, it just felt really good.
sounds so
It was
cool.
like
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
it was so cool. I remember thinking okay, I can do this. This is really neat. And I got to I got a feature in a place in Boston, but in a small venue ran by a woman named Morgan Productions. It was God, that was such a weird. It was a bookstore. It was a metaphysics bookstore. But during their open mic, this guy got naked. But anyway, so
ah.
bam, moving to California,
Yeah.
and I found Cafecito and the Black Box in Oakland, and that was the
Oh
only two
yeah, the
places I
black
knew.
box.
Yeah, and oh wow, I'm happy about that. When I think about it, 'cause I'm like, no matter where I went, if I found an open mic, I always made sure I found two. One that was anybody, and then one that was primarily black.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So in Boston, I had the Lizard Lounge, and the Cantab was the white one, right? So, and we had Cafecito, and then there'd be the black box. Oh man. Oh, and Sonia Whittle. Ooh. Anyway, so after the black box in Oakland, then there was finally Waves, and I was beginning to scratch the surface of the Bay Area slam communities because I felt it was underground for the underground. Because even as an open mic artist, the slam community is still not touchable. You know what I mean? You can't. It's like it's almost like being astral. It's like a realm that you can't go into yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like,
Hmm.
so yeah. So anyway, so that's it. That's I got in slam, and me and Melissa started running this because we had a following a little bit, so we were
Yeah.
popular, and I think
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So then like I think they gave us was a Tuesday or Wednesday, and we had a
Yeah.
poetic
Yeah.
theory,
Poetic
and like
Theory.
yeah, it was
That was over at
yeah,
Cafecito. So
like,
that was like our little open mic
yeah.
show where we would just kind of, there were a few of us, we would kind of round robin some things. And
Yeah, and like help people with stuff. It was like, and this is before we were even anybody.
I was
We
gonna
were
say, didn't
still
we,
trying to
we had like a
people
writing
about.
workshop or something? I don't know what.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Right before the thing, which is kind
Yeah.
of cool.
Well, I wanna back up for just a second because another cool fun fact is that you were in Boston, going to the Cantab and the Lizard Lounge, and Boston was the fourth team at nationals, at the second nationals. It was like New York,
Yes, yes.
Chicago, San Francisco, and Boston. And Boston is also, one of those places that is well known in slam. So just wanted to
To clarify that,
to
just
point
make
that
sure.
out too. That there are like these sort of well known spots that just kind of stay well known. And also you mentioned Waves, and just, so people know, like Waves was like the San Jose, California slam venue. Um, and so that's like where Lee and I started slamming regularly and kind of really got into it.
We took time for a second. My very first slam ever,
Yeah.
ever. It was meant something to me. It was so never man. It was a big deal, dude. It was crazy, but it gave me the kind of confidence, like, wow, wow, I tied for second, wow, and yeah, it was nice. That was fun. That was really
Well,
yes. But we should wrap this big episode up.
yeah, I
Well,
was gonna
this
say before we wrap this episode up, I was gonna say, just kind of going back to that. By the time you and I had met, I had kind of been in the scene for a little bit because I think you and I met when I was like 18, I think. So
yeah.
I had been slamming for a little over a year because I was in San Jose's finals that last season, as I recall, and didn't make the team. Um, no, I was in their semifinals. I don't think I made their
Mm,
finals, but
mm,
it's really interesting because and this might be a nice place to kind of segue, for a future show, but it's like I remember so distinctly the first time that we went to your house after the slam, that you were like, let's all like caravan to my house. And it was literally down the street from where I lived.
yeah.
And I thought, this is the most like magical, like serendipitous thing, that you were so close to me, and slam kind of brought us together,
Yeah,
that
actually, yeah, you got a point.
like I like in my mind, like that was such a magical moment to realize how close you were, you know.
Yeah, like, and plus, there was the other bonus was when me and Solana went to Italy. We were gonna be there on a month, and I was like, wow. Well, she took second. She's got her shit together. If you're gonna watch our dogs, remember you got to stay at the
Oh
house.
yeah,
Remember?
I did.
Yeah. So, dear listener, that was a glimpse of our journey into slam poetry.
Yeah,
Do-do-do. I
a
couldn't think
short
of anything else.
introduction. Lee, do you want to talk a little
Yes.
bit before we hop off here about kind of going forward, kind of what people can expect from our podcast?
Well, you can expect first the history to continue. We stopped at our journey into slam. Then you'll hear about us, going on from, day one, like, through our journey all the way to 2014. So every episode will be kind of like a year or two of our time in slam.
Expect
Yeah.
some fellow poets who also have a lot of experience, doing the slam stuff, and who are have been a part of the slam community. Also, we might from time to time choose like uh, a favorite poet poem of ours to play on the show, just to share and celebrate a lot of the sort of slam
Yes.
alumni, and the poets that we've been inspired by and look up to, to spread their wonderful poetry with more people.
The poems that we'll try to bring to you, at least all I'm going to try to bring as well, is, um, for example, like right now we're discussing our time from 2002 to 2004, right? And if I were to play you a favorite poem of mine, it would be a poem around that time, if I can find it. You know what I mean? Because I remember back then, dude, it was about Michael Sorelli. Dude,
Yeah, well, I mean,
you know what I mean? Like,
and
yeah.
I think that might be kind of
Or old Saul Williams.
to talk about, yeah, like those first like major influences, that we had, like, and this was, for context, everybody, this was before YouTube, right? So if you wanted to see a poet that was like a well-known poet, they had to come and feature at a show that was close to you. And you had to go to that show and you had to hear them. So
Exactly.
I mean, it was a very different time,
Yeah, exactly. Now you can just like pop up on YouTube and
Yeah,
do
now
this. Like
everybody's on YouTube.
before, yeah, before you had to be lucky that were you in town when they were featuring and like, you know what I mean? Like it was an event.
Yeah, it was an event, and then you'd get to
But
meet them and stuff. So that was pretty cool.
exactly. Sometimes they were cool. Sometimes that's gonna be tea for another session
Yes,
of She's Mojo,
he's Leroy.
and we are Caligula 6 telling you good night.
Good
Best
night.
wishes.
Right,
And
folks.
remember, right on. Peace.
Thank you so much for joining us on War of the Proses. If you'd like to leave your thoughts, comments, your experiences in the slam community, or share any insights you have about the topics discussed today, please feel free to leave a comment. You can like this video, or reach out to us if you're interested in learning more about slam poetry and where to find a slam near you. Thanks.